On New Year's Eve in 2010, I made a decision that would forever change the trajectory of my life. That decision was that instead of going out to party with my friends in Miami, I chose to stay at home and to instead analyze my life. I first started out with what went right. I looked at all of my achievements and I wrote that down. Next, I looked at what went wrong and I wrote down every single thing that I had failed at, and that list was much longer than the first. Taking full responsibility, I asked myself, what happened? What went wrong? The short end of it, I was in love for the very first time. I was also in the business for myself for the very first time as well, too. Back then, I knew nothing about how to run a business, but only how to be a lawyer. Mixing that with falling in love for the very first time, stifling any real chance for success. Next, I looked at my beliefs. I wrote down every single limiting belief that I believed about myself. And when I was done being brutally honest, I got on all fours and prayed the most reverent prayer ever through this thing called God and the universe, asking them to help me to release it. I knew what was causing my reality were my beliefs. And I wanted a brand new reality. In order for me to actually have that, I needed a new set of beliefs. Next, it was time for self-forgiveness and compassion. And when I was done forgiving myself, it was now time to look to the future. I got out a brand new journal, and it had the word imagine on it, and I began to write. In that journal, I wrote down every single thing that I wanted to be, do, have, and to experience in the next year. I wrote without any limits whatsoever. I wrote the outrageous. I wrote as if to say the sky wasn't even the limit, but the viewpoint. In fact, that day, I believe I wrote what Elon Musk must think like on a daily basis. Nothing, however, that was said that I wanted to leave Miami. Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea what I had just done. When I was done with all of this, I began to do affirmations and visualizations, visualize myself having everything on that list. And when I was done, it was about midnight, and I took a sip out of a glass of champagne, and I passed out. After all, I had been at this process since 6:30 a.m. that morning, and it was midnight. Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea what I had just done. But that day was the end of my world as I knew it. 3 days later, everything changed. My predominantly Spanish-speaking world in Miami began invaded with all things Paris, France, French culture, French this, and French that. Every single day for an entire year, I was bombarded about signs about Paris. It was so bizarre because I wasn't a typical American that's just crazy obsessed about Paris or anything that has a label that says made in France on it. I had no connection to Paris or to France whatsoever, so it was so bizarre, to say the least. The signs continued day after day, day after day. And in August, my heart spoke to me and said, move. Move to Paris. And so in October of that year, I sold my apartment, I sold my car, I gave away all of my things to 2 different charities, and I moved to Paris, a city where I knew no one, a culture I had no connection to, and I didn't know one word of French. I also didn't have the slightest clue as to what the hell I was going to do when I got to Paris, but I went. Before I left, my hopelessly romantic friends told me I was going to meet the love of my life and instantly begin planning my wedding. My spiritual teacher told me I was going on a karma cleansing mission and to get ready for an adventure. But it was my hairdresser whose words got my attention the most. She told me I was going to Paris to meet the one, but it wasn't who I was thinking. And it had nothing to do with the man. She told me I was going to Paris to meet me, the real me, the soul walking along my path. When I heard those words, I knew I wasn't just changing countries, that I was also changing identities. I was changing my fate, and that my entire world was about to change inside out. And this is the great mystery to life. That is, changing changes everything. But we're never taught that. And so day after day, week after week, month after month, and even for years, we sit around waiting for change to happen. We wait for someone else to change. We sit around looking at some unwanted situations in our life, hoping and praying that it'll just magically disappear or rectify itself. Hoping and praying is our strategy. Sound familiar? Not knowing that it is the other way around, that it is really up to us first to change on the inside, and then everything else will change on the outside. This is the universal law of correspondence. This law states that the external corresponds to the internal. Therefore, if you want anything to change on the outside, you must first change in the inside. But then the great paradox is this: nobody wants to change. Let me see a show of hands in here. Who here wants change? Okay, it's kind of dark, but I can see. Now, let me ask a different question. Who here wants to change? Tell the truth. I don't believe you. Yet, we all want some aspect of our lives to actually change, even in the world itself. And even later on down the line, we regret actually not taking on some change previously in our lives. Yet we continually fear change happening. At the end of 2021, Google Trends show that more people Googled the fear of COVID and the fear of change at equally and alarming rates. This is how much we actually fear change. We fear it equally as death. But can you imagine a world without any change whatsoever? We would die of absolute boredom. Change saves us from stagnation and dying a slow death. It is the only constant in life, and along with death, it is the only guarantee we have. So why not stop resisting it and instead embrace it? But then the thing is, how do we do that? Well, number one, we have to change our perspective and our language around change. Overwhelmingly, we view change as difficult, that something it is actually hard, that we should avoid as much as possible and at any cost. To the mind, change is the unfamiliar, and the mind loves the familiar. So much so, we would rather stay in toxic and abusive situations and relationships simply because it is familiar and we view change as hard. We tell us it is actually difficult. However, what if it's just a story? Is it really true that change is hard? Is it really, really, really true that change is that hard? What if it's just a story? What if it's just a story that you're telling yourself, and at any moment, if you were to drop the story that change is hard, that you would actually have a different relationship with change and actually change your life? You know, I myself had to actually go through this when I was living in Paris and trying to learn French. The universal mantra about French is that it's difficult. Even French-speaking people born to French-speaking parents living in France their entire lives would tell you their own language is hard. I had to unsubscribe from that mantra, from that belief, and tell myself that no, French isn't hard at all, that it's actually beautiful, that it's actually easy, that it's fun, that it's different, that it's even sexy, and I actually preferred my French-speaking version of myself better than actually English. Literally anything, but telling myself that it was actually hard. And it was only at that moment I was able to start picking up the language and begin to communicate. The truth of the matter is this: change isn't hard at all. It is only your perception and your observation of change being hard that makes it so. Even quantum physics supports this with the observer effect. The observer effect states that for a thing to be, it depends upon the person actually viewing it, perceiving it. That is the observer effect. You are the observer. So right now, I actually challenge you to stop observing change as actually hard and to see it completely different. To see it as a new beginning. To see it as an adventure. To see it as a pathway to success, to your desires, to happiness even. So you live in a life that you really want and actually even living your best life. So basically what I'm telling you today is, if you actually wanted to quit your job, leave your house, or leave your spouse, leave your kids, and just galley off to Paris, go for it. You can totally blame it on me. I'm totally kidding. Number 2, you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Listen, feeling-wise, change is very uncomfortable. Of course I felt uncomfortable in France. At first, in fact, every time somebody would speak to me in French, I literally would just like freeze up like a deer caught in headlights like this and just not know how to respond. As an adult, I had to begin again like a baby. I had to learn how to walk, how to talk, how to think, how to create everything in French in a different foundational language that I was actually accustomed to. But in that process, here's what I discovered. I discovered that comfort is actually overrated. That comfort is actually complacency. And all it does is maintain the status quo. Comfort really is an unfulfilled life and an undesirable life. And here's the thing, the discomfort you feel in any change you're actually embarking on, it's just the unfamiliar. It is the unfelt, it is the unseen, and it's just the unknown. And really, all you need to do is to see that it's just all of that combined, it's just the unfamiliar. And once you make the unfamiliar familiar, there is no more discomfort. So discomfort is only temporary, and I promise you, you can handle it. It won't kill you. Number 3, your desire for change has got to be stronger than your desire to stay the same. Otherwise, you won't be motivated to do anything and you will stay stuck. You will find yourself in the same situations again and again and again, miserable. Now, you may be sitting in your seat there wondering, what happened to me when I got to Paris? Did I get married? Did I fall in love with a French man? Did my friends have it right? Well, the truth of the matter is this. I could stand here before you and tell you all the incredible things that's happened to me in Paris. You know, when I got to Paris, I was just an attorney. I then became an international speaker, best-selling author, did this, did that. And honestly, I'm living my best life in Paris, and it's one hell of an adventure, and there's more to come. But really, this talk isn't about me today. It's really about you. It's about the you that is sitting in that chair that's wanting change in your life, that's have some situation going on where you're just sitting there and you're wanting it to just go away. And I'm here to tell you, I'm your sign. This is your sign, that nothing is going to change unless you yourself change first. The words, "be the change you wish to see in the world," is often attributed to Gandhi. But here's the thing. He never said that. Here's what he actually said. We but mirror the world. The tendencies of the world is present in our bodies. If we could change ourselves, so the tendencies in the world will also change. As man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world changes towards man. This is a wonderful thing. This is a divine mystery supreme, a source of happiness. You need not wonder what others do. Mahatma Gandhi. Thank you.